All right. So this one that's coming up, it's gonna be a little spicy. All right. So Mr. GC, Uncle G, Grant Cardone,
No.
real estate big dog, says no longer the American dream. Grant Cardone says people under 30 should not even consider buying a home. Mm.
No.
How does that make you feel before you even know what's going on? Like that, how does that make you? How did it make you feel? Did that invoke something in you? Or did you?
I can definitely see how that would because I feel like a lot of Americans, not a lot, but I say a lot of young people. I speak to young people. I feel like we have a tendency to be like, okay, we need to go buy a home ASAP. Like renting is like villainized. Like, okay, we need to go buy ASAP. And I even subscribed to that for a little bit. So if I would have heard Grant Cardone say that when I was in that phase, in that mode of like, man, I'm trying to get a home ASAP. I'm like, man, Grant tripping. But you know what? I kind of want to hear him out and see what he got to say. I'm gonna hear him out. I'm hearing him out.
All right. So let's hear him out. So let's hear it out. So buying a home has long been considered an essential part of the American dream. You was exploring the American dream when you was talking about that home ownership. As home ownership can be a symbol of prosperity, stability, and success. However, real estate mogul Grant Cardone, Mr. GC, Uncle G, argues that this notion no longer holds true. In fact, for young Americans, Cardone believes that the idea of home ownership simply shouldn't cross their minds right now.
Hmm.
All right, let's keep going. Anyone under 30 years old should not even consider buying a home at this time. He wrote that on X, aka Twitter. Cardone, who once called buying a home the worst investment people can make, went on to highlight the heavy financial burden of home ownership. He wrote, "The average home now costs $436,000." He didn't cite a source for this figure, but the median sale price of houses in the US in the first quarter of 2024 was $420,800 per the US Census Bureau. The total annual outlay is $50,000 a year, 4,200 per month. He wrote, explaining that this amount includes interest payments, property taxes, HOA fees, PMI, and maintenance costs. As a result, Cardone says young people, Gen Zers, should be renting instead. You can rent for under $2,000 with no long-term commitment, down payment, and keep your mobility. He wrote, concluding that buying a house is no longer the American dream. Many still find real estate to be an appealing asset class due to its income potential and it being a hedge against inflation and a way to diversify a portfolio. And also a favorite investment asset of Cardone's, who authored a book titled How to Create Wealth Investing in Real Estate. All right. And while the cost of home ownership can be substantial, there are now strategies to invest in real estate without purchasing a home yourself. All right, so they're going into the strategies of buying real estate, but we don't need to go. We don't have to go into all that. So, do you think, unlike buying a home where transactions can take weeks and even months to close, you can buy or sell shares in a REIT anytime? So I knew that was coming. I knew that was going to be a buildup. Anytime someone is usually talking against home ownership, they're usually probably selling stock or some type of crowd fund or something. So you have, when people make these statements, understanding what is their position in it, it doesn't mean that they're wrong, but it's always understanding, okay, where did this person make their money? What do they have to benefit from sharing this narrative, whether it has some truth in it or not, just so you can take that into consideration. So to be fair, Grant Cardone owns like this crowd share, where people put money into and invest in it, and he goes out and does the investing. So you need to know that when he's saying home ownership is, it's just good to know those things, because when you look at the numbers and the statistics, when people reach millionaire status, that includes their home. So sometimes when people, the everyday millionaire, without their home, they usually wouldn't even be millionaire status. So like making sure you understand that dynamic in terms of when you're actually looking at the data and numbers, and so you can have a well-rounded perspective. But anyway, going to the spicy article where it feels like it's reckless, what are your thoughts now that you understand where he's coming from?
Man, it's I know that for me, I had to it was a shock for me, like what he was talking about, that, oh, it's not just the mortgage I'm responsible for and PMI. Like, oh, there's all these other things that could go wrong. And you have this conversation with the wrong person, they're gonna say, oh man, you moving in fear, bro. Like, come on, you can't think about everything going wrong. Like, okay, that's cool and all, but kind of like we said on the last episode, this is just a conversation to you. This is my life we talking about. We're talking about moving in fear. If my gutters, I don't know, if my roof start leaking, I can't tell the missus, like, man, don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. Don't have no fear about that. We just gonna put a bucket. Like, no, we got to get that fixed. And so it's just like I can see, maybe if you're in an area where rent is just crazy and you don't have any options to move out of that area, I can start seeing where you might put a plan together and say, maybe in a year or two, if I know I'm be in this area, I'm gonna look into buying a house if you got the money saved. But here's a trend that I'm noticing, but just an anecdote. But I'm noticing a lot of people, young people, like, we're almost around my age, buying homes and then selling them very quickly. You know what I'm saying? Selling them within a year. And so I'm just curious to see more about that. You know what I'm saying? Is there a trend of people that bought these homes with the mindset of, man, I'm gonna live in it, and then when it's time to go, I'm gonna just hold on to it and rent it out or flip it? I have a sense that it's not as easy as it sounded going into it, because it's just so much that I see my friends that own a home, and it's the every time we talk, to like, man, I gotta buy new curtains. Man, I made my toilet, man, my roommate did this. I'm like, wow, maybe my landlord isn't so bad after all. All I gotta do, hey man, such and such broke. All right, bet I'm coming. All right, you wanna go to McDonald's now? Like, it's just that
Yeah,
easy. So
right. Yeah. So I'm gonna pull something up. Investopedia. How much mortgage I can afford. I can afford. I'm just doing a quick. All right. So I'm just doing a quick search real quick. All right. Just so I can, once I do a screen share, it'll be ready to go. All right, bet. All right. Okay, so now I need to go back to Zoom, come here, do screen share. All right, let's go. Let's go. All right. So Google is your friend. Some of this stuff you can figure out yourself, but I'm gonna make it easy for you. I just did a quick Google search. You don't even have to type it right. See how I typed that? Investopedia. How much I just was typing real fast. It'll come up. So,
yeah.
all right, let's go to Investopedia, which is a good, usually pretty good resource. All right, so how much mortgage can I afford? All right, so let me scroll down. I'm not a financial advisor, never ever I claim to be. And you don't have to be perfect about this stuff, man. But all right, so there's something called 28%, a 36% rule. All right, so all these rules of thumb, it's not the law. It just kind of helps you stay reasonably of not getting in over your head.
Right.
All right. The 28%, 36% rule is a heuristic used to, I think I said that right, to calculate the amount of housing debt one should assume According to this rule, a maximum of 28% of one's gross monthly income should be spent on housing expenses and no more than 36% on the total debt service, including housing and other debts such as car loans and credit cards. Lenders often use this rule to assess whether to extend credit to borrowers. Sometimes the rule is amended to use slightly different amounts, such as 29% and 41%. So that's just a rule that you can use on whether you can afford it. Now, that's not getting into down payments and all that. But yeah, so the 28, 36% rule. And so you hear the rules of thumb where someone says, oh, you shouldn't spend more than what is it? 28% of toward the mortgage, monthly pay. Like, so that's what it's referring to when you hear someone use that rule. That's kind of roughly what they're talking about. For me, my thing is I like to go as conservative as possible because stuff comes up. Like, it doesn't mean
Sure.
you're being doom and gloom, but here's the other side of it. Imagine being at like 50%, at that 50% number. Let's just say what you bringing in every month. Let's just say you're bringing in 5,000 every month, right? And half of that is your mortgage and all the other phantom costs that come along with home ownership. And you are at $2,500 a month of that 5,000. You literally can't do nothing. Like, you pay bills. I mean, you should hopefully you're paying yourself first. You do a few things, letting you know you you can't go outside. Like, you can't. I mean, you can go outside, but you ain't taking no trips like that for real. You ain't like, you're not living life. Like, you don't have the money. You don't have enough money because all the money is going into the house. And so unless you plan on standing inside all day and you just marveling around moving it in this house, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's my thing is
Shoot.
leave buffer so you can invest and do other things. And if you want to buy a house, cool, but make sure you can afford it. Cause that's really, it's the same scenario with the car. Make sure you can afford it. And you got to understand these mortgages that people are mostly signing are 30 years. Stuff
Yep.
over a 30-year period. You mean to tell me like nothing potentially could come up? Think about it. You are an asset to the bank for 30 years. Payment every single month, every single month, every single month. You don't want to take off. Like, you don't want to, like, so my point is factor it in. But in any event, at least don't get too far in over your head in buying a mortgage. And ideal, like I said, we're more on the debt free camp side and working towards that. At least be debt free with everything except for your mortgage. And then at some point, hopefully you can go ahead and knock that out. And then at that point, you're good to go and just invest into eternity until you check out, and then leave that to somebody else, ideally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just keep moving along. Keep things simple, simplify your life. I know there's a lot of advice out there. You don't have to take our advice. Figure out what your philosophy is, and then, because it's your personal finances, and be okay with it. Like, it's okay to not go down the path that the crowd is going, or when you're hearing most Americans have credit card debt, or most Americans got car loans. And you don't have to be most Americans. You could be different. It's okay. As we
Yeah.
close, what are your thoughts on that?
Man, just I agree and I echo all of what you were saying, especially outside getting expensive, man. Shoot, inside getting expensive too. Netflix going up, Spotify going up. But I would say for me, two takeaways is just, okay, if you still got that home ownership bug and maybe you're ready, it's that time.
Yeah.
I think just two main things is just do your research. Do your research. You can't never do too much research, I feel like, on a decision like this. And then also, while doing that research, build a team. You know what I'm saying? Don't go through this decision alone. I think that, especially as you had like the stuff about lending and stuff pulled up, you can do all the research in the world, but there's just some things that it takes an insider to know. So you need to get an insider or something like that on your team. Like I remember in my previous position, when I was working in Philadelphia, I partnered with banks, and so these banks would have like mortgage lending officers and things of that nature, and so they would these people, it's their job to know this stuff. So you want to leverage them, you know what I mean, and just don't like I said, do your research, but also don't feel like you have to know every single thing. Build a team and just leverage the knowledge.
Yeah. No, that's good insight. What I hear is go get wise counsel. However, yes, and what I'll add is it's an and. What I'll add to that is if someone is incentivized by the transaction,
Mhm.
it's fine, but understand that sometimes they may be speaking from the standpoint of so they can make a commission. So they're giving you this advice from them counting the commission. And so they're kind of biased to give you the path of you need to buy. And probably you're not ready to buy. For example, like a realtor. You leverage the realtor to help figure out the Boston situation. Very phenomenal, helped you navigate it, helped you figure it out. But how does a realtor get paid?
Close them deals.
Selling houses. And
Yeah.
or unless they renting, helping you locate something local and rent, and then they get, a month's rent or whatever, however they do that. But when you talk about potentially exploring buying a mortgage, that's how a realtor gets paid, which is by selling houses. So they are potentially incentivized to tell you home ownership is in your best interest, all these things. And they might have a bias that they might not even be aware of. And some of them like, hey, I got to do what I need to do. Like I'm a pro home ownership, and they may be, but they are benefiting from the transaction, which you should get paid for your hard work. So that's not even what's in question. And so make sure you're getting advice from a neutral, like you can build your team. Once you know you're ready to make that purchase, you can get with a realtor, help you navigate, figure out what are the best areas, location, based on what it is you're trying to do. Make sure you're getting a mortgage broker, making sure you're getting the best rate that you possibly can, making sure you get with mortgage, with like insurance professionals for the home insurance and all that type of stuff. Like building out your team in that way, but understanding how do they benefit from this transaction, and then having someone that is not benefiting from the transaction that might be helping that might have purchased a home themselves, that they're giving you some things to be aware of as you're working with your real estate team, because you're in a position and you can afford it, and you're leveraging these professionals because you are in a state that you can afford it. So like, for example, if you and I talking and you breaking things down to me, you sharing with me your scenario, you might be working with your real estate team and they giving you that specific, but I'm like, bro, you're not ready. Based on what you're telling me and what you want to do, you're not ready yet. So like, or you know what? Actually looking at everything, bro, like you ready. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so making sure you have someone that's not benefiting from the transaction in your corner as well, that can help you navigate it. And they indifferent, they may have an opinion, but they're indifferent, and they can just be objective and look at the scenario and say, okay, yeah, you good. Just long as you good, long as it's within the 25, 30, but if you're talking to the mortgage broker, oh, well, you can get up to this amount. And what ends up happening a lot of times is people get the highest amount that's approved, and they probably shouldn't have went that high.
Yeah.
And they probably should have, if you was approved for 400, but your budget can comfortably do 200, 225, then you probably should be in that 225 range. So anyway, so that's my feedback on that. Yeah, that was a good one. Grant Cardone say you should not buy a house if you under 30. Absolutely not. Hey, I'm in the middle. Uh, my thing is, I'm just always like, make sure you understand the phantom cost with it, and you're doing yourself a disservice when you're saying when you making a. I wonder who came up with that. I bet you it was the banks or somebody had to say it's better to buy a mortgage than the rent. The rent is almost what you're paying in rent is almost what you're paying in the mortgage. Like, you should just buy your home. It's a little bit more detailed and complicated. Like, that's just a blanket statement that I hear people say. And then you get into it and you're like, oh shit. Like, oh, HOA. Oh, by the way, HOA keeps going up. Oh, by the way, the AC went out. Like,
Yeah.
$5,000, $6,000. Did you have like
I got mold.
you got mold? Like, we had an AC guy come over, like, for example, home ownership. If we were renting, I'm not like, I'm just giving you these, I'm just showing real life scenario. This just happened. We are in Houston. The heat is blazing. The heat be heating. So
Absolutely.
we had to and so we had to have an AC guy come out. We had one person come out, give us some quotes on some stuff. One cat talking about 1,000 plus. All right, if that's what it costs, that's what it costs.
Right.
It is what it is. We get a referral from a neighbor, totally different. It only was going to cost like $185. Like, so you be having that going on too, where people be getting over as you
Because
know,
they can.
hey, what you gonna do? Not have your AC? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, the moral of the story to that is
it's crazy.
This ain't a house is not a car, and a car is not like some smaller thing that you would need to get repaired. Like, the bigger the ticket of the item, when it comes to the maintenance is as such as well. Like, if you needed to get a new roof, it's gonna run you. If you needed to, like, AC, furnace, if you have pipe issues, like, this is not stuff when you were renting, out of sight, out of mind. You just like, hey, y'all need to come fix this. I'm gonna be at work. Y'all can just come on in, like, send a maintenance person in, like, whatever, take care of it. And I ain't coming out of my pocket. I'm just paying my rent. So, like, you just understand what it is. But if you want to get a home, whatever. If you want to rent, but just don't let people pressure you into it. And again, personal finance, personal preference, and just be ready. Like, do your thing, be ready.
Exactly.
All right, awesome. Well, this was a good show. Any announcements we want to leave with the people?
No announcements, but just some deep takeaways. You
Drop
ready
it.
for them?
Drop it.
Shoot, man. It came at the strangest time too. I was not expecting this. So long story short, we in Africa. So I'm like, man, we gotta go on safari. I gotta take me see some lions and tigers. We ain't got that in Philly. We got some animals, but you know what I'm saying? So we did like basically a trek through the lions and tigers habitats. And they had the orange tigers, some white tigers, and lions. It was nice. But we're on this basically like a bus, but it's like open, but it's got cages. Cages covering it, so they can't just come and get us.
Yeah.
But the tour guide was very knowledgeable. You could tell she knew what she was talking about. She had given this tour many, many times, but it was actually towards the end of the tour that she dropped the gem, and I don't even think she knew she dropped the gem, but just when I heard it, it hit me. She was talking about the lions, these apex predators, but she said something. She said, because it's always that I ain't gonna say it, but there's always a guest that's super inquisitive, like, oh, and what type of food do you feed them, and how often do you feed them, and what kind of meat do you give them? It's like, but it's cool because the guy who know how to play that situation. She's telling everybody like, hey, by the way, we feed them this much, and so she dropped the gem. She said, and for these predators, they eat. They eat. She said they could eat up to like 40 kilograms at one time, which for us, I think that's like almost 100 pounds. They could almost eat 100 pounds of meat at one time and then sleep for a week. And
Oh,
she
wow.
said, she's talking about the feeding pattern. She said, we don't feed them every day. That's bad for them. They're not supposed to eat every single day. That's actually unhealthy for them. So when they're in the wild hunting, they're not. So think about it like that. We think about these lions because we don't know what they're doing. We're in the city, we're in the suburbs. We don't know what they're really doing. We assuming that every single day it's a successful chase and they're eating every single day. And so I don't know why, but for some reason my mind just took that outside of the jungle and outside of lions. I just thought about if you're in a casino, especially like in roles like sales, where we always talking about eat what you kill.
Yeah.
And so I just thought about that, like, wow, are we like that in a sense to where
Mm.
we're not supposed to get a big, I don't say a big win, but we're not supposed to eat every single day. Like, are we like, but for some reason our mind wants us to do that, and we feel let down if we don't do that, especially like if you're in the sales role. Like, man, I gotta close a deal every single day. Like, we pressure ourselves, but the lion don't feel that pressure. He knows what he's doing. He knows, like, okay, dang, I missed that. I missed that hyena. He got off on me. Okay, no, okay, I got you. Don't
Yeah.
worry. Okay, all I gotta do is catch one of y'all slipping, or all we gotta do is a group of us catch one elephant slipping, and it's up. We got our meal for the next month. We done.
Mm.
And so I guess my takeaway from that was just pacing. Like,
Mm.
I don't know, that was just so deep to me. She said, these predators don't eat every day, but they gonna eat something eventually.
Man, this is a good segue. I ain't know you was gonna hit me with the alley oop. I ain't know you was gonna hit me with the alley oop. Oh man, we going. So, what I hear is, are you moving too fast? Are you
Mm,
are you moving too fast? Come here,
yeah.
come into the camera. I'm going some. Come into the camera. Come into the camera. You want that BMW so bad.
Mm,
You know where I'm going. You are willing not only to eat that 100 pounds, but you gonna eat more than what you can buy, what you can chew, and now it's unhealthy. So
yeah.
now you in the space of, as the guy said, that's not healthy. So are you full on debt?
Mm, wow.
Are you full on debt that you can't digest?
Mm, wow.
I'm done. Slow down. Hey, slow down. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway for the day. That's what I'll leave you with. You'll get it one day, but maybe today is not your day. But you can work towards it when that day is your day. As some folks say, live like today, like, and then tomorrow you can live like no one else. It's because you paid the cost today. So my thing is, pay the cost. You eventually get there, but pay the cost. Don't try to get there where you too full, too fast, and it's unhealthy. And then now you in this extended period of time of being unhealthy. And then you set the date back of when you really could have enjoyed that meal when it finally came, that BMW, that
Yeah.
trip, that vacation, that doing whatever it is that your thing is, being in Mauritius for a whole month when you really could afford it and it's not really throwing you off. And whatever your thing is, you can get there. Just don't bite off more than you can chew too soon. Hey,
Yeah.
another episode in the books. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all next week. Peace.